So the ceremony of the Alkarama Award 2015 is about to start. We're doing simultaneous interpretation. Those who speak French will mostly not need any interpreters because most speeches are done in French. Otherwise, there will be subtitles. For those who have interpreters, they're already set for English and Arabic. English is on channel 3 and Arabic will use channel 1. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all my colleagues at the Alkarama Foundation, I am pleased to welcome you to the Alkarama Award ceremony for human rights defenders in the Arab world. As you know, Alkarama presents this award every year since 2009 on the occasion of the commemoration of the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. To a person or an organization that has significantly contributed to the promotion and protection of human rights in the Arab world. Our gathering tonight is the opportunity to express our support and solidarity to all the free men and women who fight in the Arab world for dignity and against tyranny, most often at the price of their freedom and sometimes even of their lives. Since its creation in 2004, Alkarama has never stopped reiterating the importance of the human rights defenders' struggle in support of all victims of the most serious human rights violations that are infringements to the right to life, to physical and moral integrity. These fundamental rights for which no excuse or circumstance could be invoked by states to undermine them. This tragic situation that individuals in the Arab world continue to live reminds us at any moment that this struggle must go on and that its outcome is not yet certain. It is no coincidence that the Alkarama Award has always been attributed to human rights defenders who are or have been detained arbitrarily in their countries for calling for the respect of the most fundamental rights of their fellow citizens. But irrespective of disappointments and setbacks, the flame of hope remains strong. Ladies and gentlemen, this year, Alkarama has decided to grant its annual award to a figure of peaceful resistance to oppression in the Arab Gulf region. The winner this year is the human rights defender and former parliamentarian Talib Al Mamari. He is honored tonight in recognition of his important work defending human rights in the country, in Oman, particularly since the crackdown on civil society following the 2011 protests. His nomination also honors the courage of a parliamentarian who never hesitated to speak up for civil society before the Omani parliament and to remind the government and petrochemical companies of their obligations, demonstrating that he is also an environmental activist. Talib is sadly not with us tonight because he is imprisoned for crimes punished only by freedom-killing and dictatorial powers, crimes such as crowding or harming the state's prestige. There is no doubt that Talib Al Mamari is a prisoner of conscience. By his non-violent struggle for civil and political rights and against adverse environmental policies in Oman, he has become a model in the region as an activist dedicated to his cause and close to the citizens' concerns. Today, the whole team at Alkarama is proud to pay tribute to him. We contacted the Omani Institution for Human Rights, an official Omani institution, to try to ensure that Talib's parents could be with us tonight. We did not receive a response on behalf of this institution, and none of Talib's family members therefore took the risk to come to Geneva for fear of reprisals. We also learned just 2 weeks ago that Talib Al Mamari's lawyer was himself arrested, to this day without any explanation from the Omani authorities. We can therefore only confirm the findings of Mr. Meina Kiai, United Nations Special Rapporteur on the rights to freedom of peaceful assembly and association, who declared after his visit to Oman in November 2014, they, the Omani people, are afraid to express their opinions, afraid to talk on the phone, afraid to meet. Talib Al Mamari represents the struggle of a courageous, peaceful activist. In the Omani society and the Gulf region in general, he personifies the struggle to guarantee the rights of the citizens and to make governments accountable before them. His arbitrary detention is sadly to the image of the region's government's usual response to such requests, which, although legitimate and non-violent, continue to be wrongly perceived by these governments as an affront and an infringement to stability. Defending human rights is not a crime, except, of course, for dictators. Talib Al Mamari clearly understood this when he declared, "There is no space left in this world, that of freedom and civilization, for persistent dictatorship." Thanks again to all.
À l'issue de cette présentation de notre lauréat, j'aimerais donc vous laisser suivre un documentaire.
I would now like you to follow this short documentary that Alkarama has produced on Talib Al Mamari, which presents the country and the human rights defender. The task was not easy, as it was not possible to film on site. We were told that we wanted journalists to work on this, but they were told they were not welcome in the country. We were, however, able to record interviews with two Omani human rights activists, Nabhan Al-Hanshi and Mohamed Fazari. The movie is in Arabic, but there will be subtitles in French and in English.
تقع سلطنة عمان في جنوب شرق الجزيرة العربية، ويبلغ عدد سكانها أكثر من 4 ملايين نسمة، من بينهم 40% أجانب. عمان هي البلد الإسلامي الوحيد الذي يعتمد فيه نظام الحكم رسميا المذهب الإباضي. يعتمد اقتصاد عمان على النفط الذي يمثل نصف إجمالي الدخل القومي، كما أصبحت عمان مقصدا سياحيا مميزا في منطقة الخليج العربي، حيث قامت الحكومة في العقد الماضي باستثمارات مكثفة لتطوير الفنادق الراقية والمنتجعات الشاطئية. نظام الحكم في عمان ملكية مطلقة، على رأسها السلطان قابوس بن سعيد من مواليد عام 1940، وهو ثامن سلاطين أسرة البوسعيدي، وصعد السلطان قابوس إلى الحكم عام 1970 بعد أن أطاح بوالده، وهو اليوم صاحب أطول فترة حكم من بين الحكام العرب. ارتبط شخص قابوس بالدولة العمانية ويلقب بوالد الأمة، وله السلطة المطلقة، فهو أعلى هيئة تشريعية في البلاد، كما أنه يشرف شخصيا على عدد من الوزارات والقوات المسلحة. وعلى خلاف نظرائه من رؤساء منطقة الخليج العربي، فإن السلطان قابوس لم يعلن وريثا للعرش، بما أن القانون الأساسي للبلاد ينص على أن مجلس العائلة الحاكمة يختار وريثا بعد أن يصبح العرش شاغرا. وقد أثار مكوث السلطان قابوس للعلاج في ألمانيا عام 2014 قلقا في البلد بخصوص من يرثه في حال وفاته. شهدت عمان نهاية القرن الماضي حملات اعتقال ضد معارضين اتهموا بمحاولة الانقلاب على الحكم، وصدرت ضدهم أحكام قاسية وصلت إلى الإعدام. وكان من نتائج هذه الأحداث أن قرر السلطان قابوس عام 2003 إنشاء مجلس شورى منتخب، ولكن ذو صلاحيات محدودة وليس له الحق في التشريع، كما أنه وإلى اليوم لا تزال الأحزاب السياسية ممنوعة في عمان. وفي صيف عام 2010 انتهز مثقفون وناشطون في مجال حقوق الإنسان فرصة الذكرى الأربعين لاعتلاء السلطان قابوس سدة الحكم، ليقدموا له لائحة مطالب يدعونه فيها إلى إجراء إصلاحات كاعتماد دستور جديد من شأنه أن يؤدي إلى نظام ملكي برلماني واتخاذ تدابير لمكافحة الفساد لدى كبار المسؤولين في الدولة. في بداية عام 2011 نظمت احتجاجات واسعة ومتكررة في عدة أنحاء من البلاد بما فيها العاصمة مسقط وصحار وسلالة. كانت شعارات المتظاهرين اجتماعية تخص البطالة والفساد المالي وكذلك سياسية، كالمطالبة بإعلام حر واعتماد دستور وضمان الفصل بين السلطات. وكرد فعل على الاعتقالات وسقوط قتيلين على يد قوات الأمن، تعددت الحملات على شبكة التواصل الاجتماعي المنددة بانتهاكات حقوق الإنسان والشاجبة لمواصفته بدولة الأمن والبوليس. ومن بين قادة تلك الاحتجاجات ظهرت شخصية بارزة، وهو طالب المعمري الذي سهر منذ البداية على سلمية المظاهرات. ولد طالب المعمري عام 1972 وهو من مدينة ليوة في شمال شرق محافظة الباطنة. وتحصل طالب على دكتوراه في اللغة العربية من جامعة القاهرة عام 2007، ثم اشتغل أستاذا بجامعة صحار، له مؤلفات ودواوين شعر، وعرف بنشاطه الرياضي والجمعوي الكثيف. انتخب طالب المعمري في مجلس الشورى لعمان عام 2011، وظل المعمري كمنتخب نصيرا لحقوق الإنسان، واشتهر باستغلال المساحة المحدودة الممنوحة له لنقل مطالب المواطنين ومحاسبة الحكومة على فشلها في تلبية تلك المطالب، فصار هدفا للسلطة التي أصبحت تخشى مواقفه الصريحة والشجاعة ودوره في الدفاع عن الحقوق المدنية وحقوق العمال والصحة العامة والبيئة.
لا يتكرر ما حصل في ولاية لواء من تدمير وجهها الأخضر بسبب الملوثات التي وزعتها الشركات العاملة في هوائها وأرضها وبحرها وفي صدور أبنائها. وهل تم دراسة تأثير ذلك اجتماعيا، وخاصة في ظل الآثار السلبية التي ظهرت على أرض الواقع كانتشار الروائح الحادة وتسرب الغازات السامة وتلوث المياه والقضاء على الزراعة والقضاء على مهنة الصيد؟ أهالي ولاية لواء والمناطق المجاورة يستغيثون بوزارتكم الموقرة ووزارة البيئة إن كانت تقوم بدورها في إيقاف هذه الكارثة البيئية والاجتماعية، فلهم حق العيش في أمان.
والنقلة النوعية التي قام بها الدكتور طالب في طبيعة الحوارات بين ممثلين الشعب وبين ممثلي الحكومة، صورة جديدة لممثل الشعب تحت قبة المجلس. لم نكن نرى مثل هذه الخطابات، خاصة أن المواضيع التي تطرق لها الدكتور طالب تحت قبة المجلس كانت مواضيع حساسة جدا.
عمدت السلطات العمانية في أعمال انتقامية ضد المعمري خلال الاحتجاجات الشعبية لعام 2011، حيث تم احتجازه ليومين. وفي عام 2012 طلبت النيابة العامة من مجلس الشورى رفع الحصانة البرلمانية عنه. وأخيرا تذرعت الشرطة العمانية في أغسطس عام 2013 بمشاركة طالب المعمري في الاحتجاجات التي شهدتها منطقة لواء، ضد الانبعاثات الملوثة للصناعات البتروكيماوية لتعتقله رغم حصانته البرلمانية بتهمة التجمهر حسب زعمها، في مدلول واضح أن السلطات اعتبرت احتجاجات صحار تعديا للخط الأحمر. أفرج عن طالب في 11 من أكتوبر عام 2013 ليعتقل مجددا بعد ساعات من الإفراج عنه. وأخيرا قضت محكمة مسقط بسجنه 4 سنوات وتغريمه 700 ريال عماني بتهمة الإضرار بهيبة الدولة والإخلال بالنظام العام وعرقلة حركة المرور، ومنذ ذلك الحين وهو محتجز تعسفيا في سجن السمائل قرب مسقط.
هذا الاعتقال حدث بسبب عقاب، أو دعنا نقول كعقاب أمني من السلطات أو من السلطة أو من النظام أو حتى من السلطان قابوس نفسه لطالب المعمري بسبب المطالبات أو المطالب التي لطالما ذكرها تحت قبة مجلس الشورى.
وخلال زيارته إلى عمان في سبتمبر عام 2014 طالب المقرر الخاص الأممي المعني بحرية التعبير والتجمهر السلمي السماح له بزيارة طالب المعمري في زنزانته، إلا أن السلطات العمانية رفضت طلبه. وفي نوفمبر عام 2014 وعلى إثر شكوى رفعتها منظمة الكرامة أصدر الفريق العامل الأممي المعني بالاحتجاز التعسفي قرارا مفاده أن طالب المعمري حرم تعسفيا من حريته، وأنه تم سجنه بسبب ممارسته السلمية لحقه في حرية التعبير والتجمع السلمي، تلك الحقوق المكفولة بموجب الإعلان العالمي لحقوق الإنسان. وفي قراره المعتمد بالإجماع يوم 16 من أكتوبر عام 2014 أعرب مجلس الاتحاد البرلماني الدولي عن قلقه إزاء حالة المعمري بصفته برلماني تعرض للانتقام على إثر ممارسته لحقوقه المشروعة في الاحتجاج السلمي وحرية التعبير. كما دعمت قضية طالب المعمري منظمات حقوقية كهيومن رايتس ووتش ومنظمة العفو الدولية التي اعتبرته سجين رأي.
مجرد دخول الدكتور طالب السجن بحجة التجمهر هي كانت مجرد عذر ممكن أسميه مسمار جحا استخدمت السلطة لكي تتخلص من الدكتور طالب من المجلس الشورى.
ويمثل طالب المعمري نموذجا للنضال السلمي الشجاع، ويجسد في عمان وفي منطقة الخليج بشكل عام الكفاح من أجل احترام حقوق الناس وتمكينهم من رفع تظلماتهم بالطرق السلمية، وأن تتكفل الحكومات المسؤولة بمطالبهم.
وضع الحقوق في عمان الآن صعب جدا. تلك الثمار التي جناها الشباب أو دعنا نقول بارقة الأمل التي حملها الحراك الاحتجاجي في 2011 والتي توسمنا منها خيرا، نعلم تماما الآن أنها إن لم تكن اختفت فقد تضاءلت، وذلك بسبب القوانين الأمنية التي أصدرتها السلطات الأمنية في عمان، وحاولت من خلالها تطويق كافة الحراكات مهما كان نوع هذا الحراك، سواء كان حراكا لفظيا أو كان حراكا كتابيا أو تحركا ميدانيا، إلى رفض السلطة في عمان إلى مبدأ الرأي والرأي الآخر، وأنها لا تستمع إلا لصوتها فقط.
حسب القانون العماني تشكيل مثل الفرق هذه الحقوقية صعب جدا. المنظمة الحقوقية الموجودة والجهة الحقوقية الوحيدة في عمان هي جهة حكومية.
احتجاز طالب المعمري بشكل تعسفي يعكس للأسف تصرف حكومات المنطقة مع هكذا مطالب، والتي على الرغم من مشروعيتها وطابعها اللاعنفي لا تزال تنظر إليها هذه الحكومات بشكل خاطئ تماما على أنها إهانة وتهديد للاستقرار.
Donc après ce documentaire, nous allons écouter une autre séquence vidéo.
We will now listen to another video from our colleague from Human Rights Watch, Adam Kugo, who could not be with us tonight due to other commitments. He has nevertheless been kind enough to send us a video recording made especially for the ceremony. So Adam Kugo joined Human Rights Watch in 2010 after doing a master's in Arab studies at Georgetown University in the US. He is very familiar with the Arab world, following stays of several months in Syria and Jordan, where he is currently based, and Adam was able to visit Oman in 2014. Let us listen to his testimony about Talib.
I specialize in human rights in the Gulf. It's a privilege to address today's conference for the 2015 Award for Arab Rights Defenders in the Arab world. The recipient of tonight's award is Talib Al Mamari. Tonight I want to talk just a little bit about the context for human rights in Oman, and then after that I'll say a little bit about Mr. Al Mamari. Oman historically has not really been associated with human rights. Oman has been sort of thought of as a backwater, a place which was very quiet, where citizens didn't make demands on their governments, and that there wasn't really much of a human rights culture. Now that all really came to an end in the year 2011, partly inspired by Arab uprisings going on in Egypt, Tunisia, and other places. Omani citizens took to the streets and made demands on their government. These included economic demands for higher wages, for more job opportunities, but they also called for greater respect for human rights and more democracy in the country. These protests that went on across the country in Muscat and in other cities led to the establishment of a nascent human rights community, with groups of activists coming together, learning about human rights work, getting to know one another, learning how to do social media activism and in-person activism. Perhaps the largest demonstration in Oman took place at the Globe Roundabout in the northern town of Sohar, where several thousand Omanis blocked the square and protested and demanded that their government make positive changes. Now, Omani authorities responded by putting down this protest with force, and in fact ended up crushing all of the pro-democracy and pro-reform protests that were going on in the country. One of the speakers at the Globe Roundabout during those days was Talib Al Mamari himself. He addressed the crowd. He had a pro-reform message. And unfortunately, this human rights community that was developed, the Omani authorities since that time have been trying to crush it. They have arrested scores of activists. They have prosecuted them. They have jailed them. Eventually, most of them were pardoned in 2013. But unfortunately, the harassment and the jailing of activists continues. Just this summer, we saw a group of 5 or 6 activists who were arrested, apparently for having links with each other, and apparently for also speaking about human rights to outside organizations. Were all called in for questioning and held for several days. Eventually, they were all released and without charge, as far as I understand. But it's important to note that this goes on. And I think Talib Al Mamari's story is really part of this. Now, I should say, in mid-2014, I actually went to Muscat and interviewed a family member of Talib Al Mamari to hear more about his story. He is a graduate of Sohar University and specializes in Arabic language and linguistics. He was a community leader in a northern area called Liwa, which is near Oman's major port, and because of that has suffered severe environmental damage that residents believe has led to a degradation of health of the citizens of that area. Now, Talib was always a community leader and working with the government to actually relocate those residents. But over the years, the residents' grievances increased because they felt like the government was going too slow on the relocation and they weren't cleaning up the area. These residents got together and in mid-2014 organized a pretty large-scale protest at the port. Al Mamari was certainly at the protests. His family argues that he was there trying to calm the demonstrators and he was trying to negotiate between the government and the demonstrators, but unfortunately things got out of hand. Everybody that Human Rights Watch has interviewed said the protesters were purely peaceful, but that the authorities moved in and forcibly dispersed them anyway. After the protest was dispersed, authorities arrested Al Mamari. They charged him with harming the prestige of the state, blocking a public road, as well as illegal gathering, among a host of other sort of vague charges. They eventually convicted him and sentenced him to 4 years and 500 Omani rials. This verdict was eventually vacated, and then on a retrial, he was actually sentenced to 4 years again and 700 Omani rials. We think that Talib Al Mamari, based on the trial as it went, we believe that he probably should never have been charged in the first place. We think Oman is probably persecuting him because as an elected representative, in fact, from Sohar, he was very critical of Omani policies. Amnesty International has called him a prisoner of conscience, and in fact, in 2014, the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention classified his detention as arbitrary and said he's entitled to compensation from the Omani government. If Oman really wants to clean up its image, it really needs to halt its harsh repression of human rights activists and peaceful dissidents, among them Talib Al Mamari. It should immediately release him. It should also clean up and amend some of these vague laws that it uses to curtail basic rights. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Khadija Nema from Alkarama. Khadija works on the Gulf region. She joined Alkarama in 2014 after having finished her master's in international law from the University of Aix-en-Provence, and she undertook several research trips in Oxford, in Great Britain, and at Yale University. She worked specifically on Oman this past few months, and she knows well Talib and will be able to speak about what Alkarama did on his case for him. Good evening. We would like to thank you all for your presence and your support today. It means a lot to the laureate and his family. Each year, when we prepare this ceremony, we face a concentrate of difficulties and obstacles that every human rights defender in the Arab world faces in its activism. In the majority of cases, our laureate is arbitrarily imprisoned as a consequence of his activism and therefore cannot receive his or her prize in person. Nevertheless, his relatives are usually able to join us, and local civil society celebrate him in the media or through messages of support. This year, however, not only is our laureate absent since he is arbitrarily detained, but for fear of reprisals, his family did not dare to join us in Geneva or even to speak before a camera to convey a message. Paralyzed with the same fear, local civil society is watching us in silence today, unable to honor a man who used to be one of their most faithful voices. Today, the only ones who dare to speak about the human rights situation in Oman are those who did not have any other choice but to leave their country to be able to denounce, without fear of reprisals, the arbitrariness of their government. In fact, Oman's public image of a tourism and progressive country is hiding quite a different reality. It is one of the only countries in the region that has not become a party to the Convention Against Torture, a country held by an absolute monarchy which criminalizes all forms of criticism and which does not give to its population a real possibility to participate to the political life and public decision-making in their country. The Majlis al-Shura, or Consultative Council, of which our laureate is a member, acts as an elected parliament, but, as its name indicates, only has a consultative role and not a decisional one. Thus, when Talib made use of his position to hold the Omani rulers accountable, the reprisals he was subjected to in return were made with a view to remind him that he was not here to give his opinion, unless the latter was in accordance with that of the authorities. Silence is the word which, hand in hand with fear, restrains Omani civil society today. It is a silence that has been slowly but surely imposed through systematic reprisals of any individual who dares to criticize the authorities. To understand this situation, we need to go back to 2011 when, inspired by the uprising in neighboring countries, the Omani people demonstrated to denounce their political elite's corruption and demand more inclusiveness in their country's public affairs. The demonstrations were peaceful, but the authorities answered merciless, making use of excessive force to the point of causing death among demonstrators, as well as mass arresting participants. Talib Al Mamari was among those arrested, and it is from then that reprisals against this long-time activist worsened. Since then, the repression of contestation, as peaceful and legitimate it is, became systematic, and timely summons by the special forces of the Royal Police, smear campaigns, confiscation of identity papers and travel bans, but also, and even more worryingly, incommunicado detention, ill treatment, and prison sentences following unfair trials have become the authorities' favorite tools to impose this wall of silence that weighs so heavily upon the Omani society. It is this very situation that Meinak Kiai, Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Association and Peaceful Assembly, was able to observe for himself during his official visit to the country in September 2014. He had asked to visit Talib in his cell, but his request had been rejected by the authorities. Upon his return, he described his meetings with civil society in this way, and I quote, "I got the distinct impression of a pervasive culture of silence and fear affecting anyone who wants to speak and work for reforms in Oman. They're afraid to speak their minds, afraid to speak on the telephone, afraid to meet." After his visit, the rare activists who had met him were summoned by the Omani police, some of whom were prosecuted and imprisoned. This is the case of another activist for which Alkarama also fought very hard, Said Jadad, a democracy and human rights activist in his country, to whom we would also like to pay tribute today. Said Jadad was arrested many times for speaking up about his country's situation. At each of his arrests and long arbitrary detention, Alkarama brought his case before UN experts, who, in turn, repeatedly called for his release. Said Jadad was just rearrested on 25 November, again for peacefully expressing his disagreement with his government's policy, showing that this retaliation policy continues unabated. It is in this context that Talib Al Mamari tried with force and conviction to ensure that the legitimate grievances of its citizens be heard by their rulers, and that the latter be held accountable for their inaction. And that is also why he was arrested, simply for having accompanied his fellow citizens in the peaceful demonstration of their distress, faced with the extremely serious consequences of toxic waste from Liwa's petrochemical industries on their environment and health, causing fatal malformations and cancer. Talib Al Mamari was arrested despite the parliamentary immunity that was supposed to protect him in this type of situation, and convicted of undermining the state's prestige and crowding, for doing what any parliamentary worthy of the name would consider his duty. Because being imprisoned for having peacefully expressed an opinion is a serious human rights violation, Alkarama brought his case to the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, which, in turn, called the Omani authorities to release him immediately. Similarly, because attacking a parliamentarian in the performance of his duty amounts to attacking the very process of the realization of rights and the protection of citizens' interests, Alkarama also brought his case before the Inter-Parliamentary Union, which decided to seize the case. Defending this man is for us an honor, because his situation embodies the essence of what Alkarama aims to achieve by the means of law and peaceful struggle, namely an Arab world where individuals are free to claim their rights and those of their fellow citizens without fearing for their freedom or for their lives. We hope that he will soon be free to reunite with his family and his children, and that he will resume his peaceful struggle so that the rights of his fellow citizens are not seen as a favor made by the authorities, but as a responsibility of the rulers towards their people. We therefore celebrate today more than a defender of human rights, but a true symbol of democracy. Dr. Al Mamari should be celebrated and not silenced, as he represents a chance for his country to move towards better governance and a respect of the rights of all. Thank you very much.
Une autre personne qui devait initialement être avec nous ce soir et qui malheureusement n'a pas pu le faire en raison
We will now listen to Mr. Setonji Roland Adjovi, who was supposed to be with us tonight, but wasn't able to join because of his professional activities. Mr. Roland Adjovi is second vice chair of the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention. He's from Benin. He is an assistant professor at Arcadia University, where he teaches, among others, international human rights law. He is also a visiting scholar at University Paris II and has previously worked at the International Criminal Court and the International Tribunal for Rwanda. He was appointed to the Working Group on Arbitrary Detention in May 2014. As a reminder, the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention is one of the special procedures created to monitor human rights violations, in particular detention. It is under the supervision of the UN Human Rights Council and sends urgent appeals to governments to clarify the fate and condition of those who have been arrested. It can also conduct fact-finding missions in countries, just as it gives opinions on individual cases submitted to it. We warmly thank Mr. Roland Adjovi, who was not able to attend our ceremony tonight, but who wished to make a short video, which we invite you to follow.
متابعته. Roland Adjovi, United Nations human rights expert, member of the Working Group on Arbitrary Detention. I'm sorry that my professional obligation could not allow me to join you all for this event celebrating Dr. Al Mamari from Lima in the Sultanate of Oman. Talib Al Mamari used to teach Arabic literature in his country after obtaining a doctorate from Cairo University in Egypt. But the reason why he's here today celebrated is that he has taught us lessons in human rights. Once he returned to his native region, he got elected by the Lima constituents to the national parliament to represent them. He has also been an advocate for the rights of his people, especially to a safe and clean environment against the continuous and high-level pollution suffered by the region. He has been an exceptional human rights defender, fighting for the rights of the contemporary countrymates, but also for the future generations. He is also critical of his government, as every elected official should be, so that the care for the people, the population, could continuously improve. The government did not like such an activism and had started since 2001-2011 to abuse him. In August 2013, after he participated in public and peaceful demonstration, he was arrested and detained. Later charged for committing harm to the state's status and for disturbing public order, he was convicted and sentenced to prison and to pay fine. When his situation was presented to the working group, there was no doubt that the detention was arbitrary. The response of the government did not convince the working group, which went as far as stating that the law relied upon for his convictions allows a broad interpretation which may result, as it occurred in this case, in a violation of the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. As a result, the working group unanimously concluded that the government shall not only release Dr. Al Mamari, but also accord him an enforceable right to compensation. Today, Dr. Al Mamari is not present here because he has not been released, despite the opinion of the working group. But his work is recognized and here rewarded. This is a message for us all, and we should continue the struggle against our respective government for respect of human rights and for his freedom. The Sultanate of Oman is hearing us, and the individual within it will certainly understand that the commitment of the state depends on each of them. The Arab Spring is not over and has not yet succeeded everywhere, and we cannot abandon those who were fighting for us. May Dr. Al Mamari soon be released, and I wish you a successful celebration of a hero. Thank you.
I'll now invite Julie Leuenberger and Rachid Mesli to join me on stage. Firstly, I would like to introduce Mr. Leuenberger.
Monsieur Leuenberger est un homme politique suisse.
Mr. Leuenberger is a Swiss politician, former president of the Green Party, who has just left the Swiss Parliament, where he had been working for over 12 years, with a particular interest in the Arab world and the defense of human rights, and certainly of the environment. Mr. Leuenberger was elected a couple of weeks ago president of the Geneva Institute of Arab and Mediterranean Cultures. Mr. Leuenberger is also known for its involvement in various areas, including through the creation of the Albanian People's University and through its role as co-chairman of the Friendship Parliamentary Group, Switzerland-Armenia. Given his profile as a human rights defender and an environmental activist, and as an elected member of parliament, that he was sharing so much with Talib Al Mamari that we would ask him to receive the award symbolically in the absence of Talib Al Mamari. I hope there will come a day where you will give this award to Talib Al Mamari, in hand. In the meantime, with Mr. Leuenberger, there's Rashid Misli, who is legal director and co-founder of Alkarama, also a human rights defender, who has visited numerous prisons for his work, and who also shares this human rights defender aspect with Talib Al Mamari. Before we give the prize to Mr. Leuenberger, I invite Rashid Misli to say a few words about the Alkarama Award. Good evening. I am honored to be with you tonight to give this year's awards on behalf of the Alkarama Foundation. Before awarding the prize to Mr. Talib Al Mamari by symbolically giving it to Mr. Yuli Leuenberger, who kindly accepted to receive it on his behalf, undeniably because he shares with him the same universal values of respect of human rights, I would also like to pay tribute to the previous recipients of the Alkarama Award. Like today for Talib Al Mamari, most other laureates have not been able to receive the award in person, as they too were, and some still are, in prison for their peaceful commitment to protect and promote human rights in their respective countries. I'm thinking, of course, of last year's nominee, Shireen Issawi, a prominent and courageous lawyer and human rights defender who dedicated her life to defending the rights of Palestinian prisoners of conscience unlawfully detained in Israeli prisons, before being herself arrested because of her commitment to defend the victims of the Israeli repression. Shireen Issawi was not able to attend the 2014 Alkarama Award ceremony, as she was, and still is today, detained in solitary confinement in retaliation for her determination in defending these Palestinian prisoners before Israeli courts, using the law as her only weapon. Often arrested and prosecuted under charges of terrorism or attack to the state security, human rights defenders all share a common feature: their peaceful commitment to non-violence as the way to achieve their goals, that to help victims of violations and to defend and promote the fundamental rights of their fellow citizens. Their previous year's laureate, in 2013, Abdullah Haidar Shai, was also only armed with his pen. A Yemeni journalist, Mr. Shai had been the first person to uncover the serious human rights abuses committed by the United States and the Yemeni authorities in their war on terror. Were it not for his groundbreaking and courageous investigative reporting on US airstrikes in Yemen, the true effects of these drone and missile strikes on the civilian population might have remained a secret. But as he would soon find out, his writing and his talent would cost him his freedom. Following his investigation of a US airstrike on a Yemeni village, which resulted in the death of 55 civilians, including 14 women and 21 children, Mr. Shai was arrested at the US's request and sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, again on terrorism-related charges. Two previous Alkarama Award co-laureates of 2012, human rights defenders Dr. Mohamed Al-Rokan from the United Arab Emirates and Dr. Saud Al-Hashimi from Saudi Arabia, prominent human rights defenders in their respective countries and whose pacifism has been illustrated many times over, are both still detained to this day for having called for greater civil and political rights in their countries. Talib Al Mamari therefore follows a sad tradition of laureates unable to attend their own prize-giving ceremony, but so present in our thoughts and hearts. In his absence, and in the absence of his lawyer, himself arrested a couple of weeks ago, under the charge of having harmed the state's prestige, and in the absence of his family, who wasn't able to come to Geneva for fear of reprisals, I am happy to give the prize on behalf of Talib to Mr. Uli Leuenberger, who shares with our laureate common universal values as a human rights defender and as an environmental activist. Through his political role at the Swiss Parliament, Mr. Leuenberger indeed always thrived to defend and promote the rights of his fellow citizens, but also to call for more democracy in the world. I therefore thank him on behalf of Alkarama and on behalf of all the victims that we defend to have accepted to represent Mr. Talib Al Mamari. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm very touched and honored to be associated with this award, an award that I will keep to present it to the laureate as soon as possible. As you well understood, it is not me but Mr. Talib Al Mamari who should be in my place tonight. I would therefore be able to be in the audience to applaud and congratulate him on the work that he has done as a man committed to the people of his region, exposed to pollution from the petrochemical industry. For the courageous struggle he has led, voters in Liwa elected him to the Shura, an advisory council functioning quite differently from that of a parliament, as I know, as we know it. Defending the causes of the population that mandated him to represent them in the streets, and with great conviction at the Shura Council, his action exposed him to repression and he was ultimately imprisoned. I congratulate the Alkarama Foundation for having chosen this human rights defender and defender of the environment. This activist in support of non-violence, deeply engaged with the concerns of his fellow citizens. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and the Inter-Parliamentary Union have perfectly described the injustice and repression suffered by and under which Talib Al Mamari still suffers in Omani cells. With them and the Alkarama Foundation, I asked the Omani authorities to release this political prisoner, together with all other political prisoners in the country. Honoring an activist and parliamentarian committed to the respect of human rights in his country, fighting against environmental destruction and pollution, which endangers and sickens people living near petrochemical facilities, is of particular significance on the eve of International Human Rights Day and during the UN Climate Conference in Paris. The act of saving the planet builds up mostly by countless women and men around the world, by courageous activists, some of whom pay the price of their commitment with repression, sometimes even ill treatment, torture, and prison, sometimes death. Talib Al Mamari is among the most courageous ones, who, despite intimidation and threats, continue their commitment to a just cause. In the human rights field, sadly, no binding UN treaty provides for a specific right to a healthy environment. But we can observe in the interpretation of existing human rights protective elements that may contain certain requirements for environmental conditions. These rights, which implicitly correspond to certain environmental requirements, are the rights that are threatened by environmental pollution, such as the right to an adequate standard of living or the right to health, as enshrined in the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. Additionally, these rights encourage a coherent environmental policy. Freedom of expression and information, for instance, fall into this category. Talib Al Mamari fully corresponds to a person undergoing serious human rights violations. To conclude, allow me to make a comment concerning certain reactions from people learning about my participation in today's ceremony. There would be countries in the region where the situation is much worse than Oman, I was told. This is certainly true, but human rights are indivisible. They must be encouraged and promoted everywhere. A country that represses and locks the noblest of these women and men must hear our cry of revolt. Each country, for each human rights violation. A friend and former political prisoner once told me, you know, to know that outside prison, in the country and in the world, people commit for us, makes the nights in prison much shorter. It is my hope that the nights of Talib Al Mamari and other political prisoners in Oman and elsewhere become shorter. And I wish with all my heart to present this award to Talib Al Mamari as quickly as possible, to a free man, so he can continue the commitment which we share. Thank you very much. Thanks to Uli Leuenberger for closing the ceremony on such a poignant way, and I hope that the wish he formulated to see Talib Al Mamari free soon, to present him with his award, will happen in a close future. I now invite you to the lobby where drinks and an oriental buffet will be served.